I never imagined that desire could awaken after so many years asleep. But there he was, a man who not only touched my skin, but something much deeper. With each caress, he broke my fears and lit a fire I thought was extinguished. As far as I went, join me until the end and make yourself comfortable, because what you are about to hear is not just a story. It is a reflection of what many secretly desire. Like me, if you can already feel the tension I lived those days, and subscribe, because what I'm about to tell you will be impossible to forget. My name is Clara. I'm 58 years old, and I thought that my life had no more room for surprises. Every day is a repetition of the previous one. Having breakfast alone, walking through an empty park, and waiting for a phone call that never comes. Being a widow and retired should be synonymous with rest, but all I felt was emptiness, until I made a decision that would change everything. I never thought that a woman so, how should I put it, reserved, would come to that moment. I was sitting in a coffee shop, looking at an ad on my phone, feeling my heart beating stronger with every second. I would actually dare to hire someone like Lucas. When he showed up, it was like the air in the room changed. His smile, his demeanor. It was as if time stood still. I felt awkward, out of place, like a schoolgirl at her first dance. He approached me, offered me a drink, and with incredible calmness began to push out to talk to me. His words seemed to tear down every wall I had built up over the years. What was a man like that doing paying attention to me? It was a mystery I could not ignore. The wine helped, but it wasn't enough to calm my mind. Insecurities appeared like a storm in my head, my body, my age, my wrinkles, but Lucas didn't seem to notice. Or at least he didn't care. When he brushed my hand for the first time, I felt a shiver run through every corner of my body. It was a forgotten feeling, buried under years of routine and disappointment. Something inside me screamed that I should stop, but my skin was asking for more. I hesitated. I admit it. I tried to take control of the situation, unbuttoning my blouse, but my hands were shaking so much that it seemed impossible. Lucas noticed and stopped me with a simple gesture. He took my hands in his. "Don't be in a hurry," he said in a voice that was both firm and warm. That moment was like a flash of lightning in the middle of the darkness. No one had ever treated me like this before, with patience, as if I really mattered. We sat on the bed, but not for what I first imagined. We started talking, and somehow I ended up telling him things I had never said out loud. About my husband, about those years of marriage, without a real spark, about the times I faked smiles and caresses to keep the peace. Lucas didn't interrupt me, but when I finished, he looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "You're stronger than you think, but you forgot yourself along the way." That kiss, I don't know how to describe it. It was like a bridge we crossed together. Soft and unhurried, but filled with an intensity that made me lose myself completely. For the first time in years, I let someone really see me, but just as I was ready to give it my all, my phone rang, my daughter. That call shattered the moment like a glass falling to the ground, reminding me all at once of who I was and the life I had left behind. But something had changed inside me. Something I could no longer ignore. If you have come this far, you know this is not just a story. Is a reflection, maybe yours, maybe mine. Every step I took brought me closer to something I never thought possible. Like me, if you ever felt that time was passing you by. Comment if you also believe that there is always an opportunity to change everything. And subscribe, because what comes next is not only the next chapter, it's the truth that many are afraid to face. Are you ready? My daughter's call was brief, but enough to remind me how far away I was from my own life. When I hung up, Lucas was still there waiting for me, as if he understood I needed a moment to clear my head. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me with those eyes that seemed to say everything without uttering a word. I felt vulnerable, but for the first time it didn't bother me. On the contrary, there was something liberating about being seen that way. No judgment, no expectations. I approached slowly as if I were crossing a threshold from which I knew there would be no turning back. Lucas asked me something unexpected, to dance. At first I laughed nervously. Dancing? But he insisted, saying there was no better way to loosen my nerves. He placed his phone on the table and put on soft, almost hypnotic music. He took me by the hand and guided me into the center of the good room. His movements were sure, fluid, and mine, well, let's just say it was obvious I hadn't danced in years. But something happened as we moved to the music. I began to feel light, almost forgetting my own insecurities. We were so close I could feel the warmth of his body. His hand on my waist, his gaze fixed on mine. It was as if time had stopped. I don't remember who made the first move, but suddenly his lips were on mine, and I let go. That kiss was different from the first, deeper, more urgent. I felt as if my body and mind were finally in tune, as if all doubts were dissipated in an instant. We paused for a moment, both of us, breathing deeply, and he smiled at me in a way that almost completely disarmed me. "You're amazing, Clara," he said softly. He didn't have to say it, but he did, and those words resonated inside me. I hadn't felt amazing in years, and now this man, this stranger, was giving me back something I thought I had lost forever. Then, as I was ready to give myself completely, my own thoughts betrayed me. What if he was just pretending? What if to him I was just another customer? I pulled away slightly, trying to regain control of the situation. Lucas, with infinite patience, took my hands and said something I will never forget. "I'm not perfect, of course, but I'm here with you. At this moment, I'm only yours." Those words were like a balm for my soul. When we finally let go, it wasn't rushed or awkward. It was as if every movement, every caress, was designed to erase years of insecurities. His touch wasn't just physical. It was as if he was reaching for something much deeper inside me. For the first time in decades, Jose, I felt like I was alive. Really alive. But just as I was beginning to lose myself in that moment, something inside me reminded me that this was just the beginning. There was something about Lucas that I didn't quite understand, a mystery that drew me in and unsettled me at the same time. Now that you have seen how far I have come, tell me, do you also feel that there is something missing in your life? Like me, if you ever wanted to break away from everything that ties you down. Comment and you think Lucas is as real as it seems, and subscribe now, because what's to come is not just the next step. It's the moment when everything falls apart or something new is built. Are you ready to find out? The mood in the room had completely changed. I don't know if it was the soft music still playing in the background, the dim lights, or just the way Lucas was looking at me. There was a connection I couldn't deny. Every time his hands touched my skin, a new universe seemed to open up in front of me. When he began to slowly unbutton his shirt, my breathing stopped. It wasn't just his physique which struck me, but the way he did it. Sure, but unhurried, letting every gesture speak louder than words. When she stood in front of me, with her naked torso, I couldn't help but notice every detail. The firmness of his shoulders, the lines marked on his abdomen. But what really disarmed me was his gaze. It wasn't that of a man who was simply doing his job. It was that of someone who wanted this moment to be unforgettable for both of us. He took my hand and led me to the bed, where I sat feeling the vertigo of what was about to happen. His finger ran down my cheek, slowly moving down to my neck, sending a shiver, which I didn't try to stop. When Lucas began to kiss my neck, every kiss was like a spark that lit a fire that I thought was off forever. His touch was careful, almost reverent, as if every inch of my body deserved his full attention. As his hands explored my waist, my fears seemed to disappear, replaced by a desire I had never known. I closed my eyes and let him take control, trusting him in a way I had never trusted anyone before. As Lucas continued, his rhythm was perfectly in sync with mine. There was nothing rushed, nothing that felt out of place. When his body finally joined mine, it was as if the whole world faded away. There were no thoughts, no past, no future. It was just us in that moment, discovering together something that seemed to transcend the simple physical act. The moment was intense, but what surprised me most was what came next. As we stood together, still entangled, Lucas began to speak softly to me. He told me that he had never met someone like me, someone who could be so strong and yet so vulnerable. His words were like a balm to my soul, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't alone. He was seeing me, really seeing me in a way that even I hadn't allowed myself to do. Then we were silent. It was not uncomfortable, but rather filled with a peace that I could not recall. I crouched on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. I wanted to ask him so many questions at that moment. Why was he doing this? What had led him here? But something in his expression stopped me. I knew there was something he wasn't telling me. And as much as I wanted to find out, I also feared what it could mean. It was as if that connection we'd created could fall apart at any moment if I said the wrong word. Can you feel it? That moment when everything seems perfect, but you know something else is lurking beneath the surface. Like us, if you've ever been on the verge of something big, comment if you think Lucas is hiding a secret that could change everything, and subscribe right now. Because what's to come is not just the climax of this story. It's a turning point no one has ever seen coming. Dare you follow me? The next morning, I awoke to sunlight filtering through the curtains. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee caught my attention, and there was Lucas, shirtless, leaning against the doorframe, holding 2 cups. His presence filled the space, and I couldn't help but smile. I approached him, still wrapped in the sheets, and took the cup he offered me. Lucas said nothing, but his gaze was enough. That physical connection we had shared the night before was still present, as if our skins were still magnetized. As we drank coffee, his hand gently caressed my back, drawing circles that seemed to hypnotize me. His touch was unhurried, as if he knew my body was rediscovering what it was to feel desired. He set the cup on the table, and before I could react, he lifted me in his arms and carried me back to bed. My laughter mingled with his smile as he trimmed me on the sheets. Lucas watched me with an intensity I hadn't experienced before, as if every part of me deserved his attention and care. Lucas leaned over me, his lips tracing my neck, my shoulders, and every nook and cranny I seemed to forget over the years. His breathing was warm, leisurely, and each kiss made me feel as if my skin was coming alive for the first time. His every movement was an invitation to let go, and I, for the first time in a long time, allowed myself to say yes. His body and mind moved in a perfectly synchronized age, with no urgency, just a desire to explore every sensation. My hands slid down her back, discovering textures, while her caresses seemed to unlock something deep inside me. It wasn't just the physical act, it was the connection. The way his eyes searched mine at every turn, making sure I was there with him, fully present. In a moment's pause, Lucas whispered something in my ear that I will never forget. "You are beautiful, Clara, in every possible way." His words were like a direct blow to my heart, dismantling every doubt, every insecurity I had carried for years. I responded by taking her face in my hands and kissing it with an intensity I didn't even know I had. It was as if every part of me was awakening, freeing itself from invisible chains that had bound me for so long. When it was all over, the silence that filled the room was not uncomfortable. It was full. Lucas stayed by my side, his fingers playing with my hair as I rested on his chest. It was then that he told me about his life, about the reasons that had led him to this path. His sincerity touched me deeply, but it also left me with an uneasy feeling. I knew that this experience was unique, unrepeatable. At the end, when I looked in the mirror before saying goodbye, I saw something different. I saw a woman who had finally allowed herself to feel, to live, and to be desired. Now that you have come with me to this point, tell me, what would you do if you were given the gift has made you think about everything you carry inside? Comment on what you think I learned from Lucas and what you think he learned from me. And subscribe right now, because this isn't just my story. It could be yours. Are you ready to keep exploring with me?